Hello, Mr. Gautam. How are you doing?
Great, thank you. Great to be on your show, Mr. Daya.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Pleasure is ours. Thank you so much for accepting our invite and to be on this show today. Um, at Startup Duniya, our intent, Mr. Gautam, is simply that we talk to entrepreneurs like yourself and try and identify, you know, कि ये जो एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप है, ये जो जर्नी है, इसके जो डिफरेंट डायमेंशंस हैं, there are some good things, there are some not so good things, there are some challenges, there are some opportunities. तो ये सब जो पूरा इकोसिस्टम है और इसको पूरी जर्नी है, पूरा जो पाथ है इसका, उसको ट्रेड करते हुए जो एंटरप्रेन्योर्स हैं वो कितना एंजॉय करते हैं और क्या सोच उनके माइंड में चल रही होती है, इन सब चीजों को कवर करने के लिए और कैप्चर करने के लिए, सो दैट जो आपकी जर्नी रही है उससे हम क्या सीख सकते हैं और वो लोग जो मे बी आप ही के सेक्टर के अंदर वेंचर आउट करना चाहते हैं या फिर अलग एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप, अलग इंडस्ट्री, अलग डोमेन के अंदर करना चाहते हैं, बट देयर आर सम कॉमन थिंग्स दैट दे कैन गेट टू लर्न फ्रॉम योर एक्सपीरियंस. तो आइडिया सिर्फ इतना चाहिए स्टार्टअप दुनिया का, इसलिए ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है हमारे लिए कि आप आए इस शो पे और आप अपनी जर्नी को हमारे साथ में शेयर करेंगे और उससे हम बहुत कुछ शायद सीखने को निकाल पाएंगे.
Thank you very much, and I must congratulate. इतना बढ़िया इनिशिएटिव है ये, दया जी. So I'm really excited and looking forward to contributing and supporting this cause as much as I can.
Great, fantastic. तो मिस्टर गौतम, मैं थोड़ा सा आपके बारे में स्टडी कर रहा था और जो जो मैं थोड़ा सा निकाल पाया वो ये निकाल पाया कि यू बिलोंग टू अ फैमिली व्हिच वाज इनटू सर्विस. सो आपके दोनों पेरेंट्स जो हैं वो दोनों सर्विस में थे और आपके जो ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स हैं वो एंटरप्रेन्योर्स रहे हैं, राइट? और आपने भी जब अपना करियर स्टार्ट किया तो आपने जॉब के साथ स्टार्ट किया, आपने इंडस्ट्री जो है अक्रॉस द इंडस्ट्री यू वर्क and across functions you have worked across the globe. तो ये सब जो पूरी ये रही आपकी जर्नी, राइट? और फिर फाइनली वहां से आपने अपना ये स्टार्ट करना, बीटो स्टार्ट करना, राइट? इसके बारे में अगर थोड़ा सा आप शेयर करें तो अच्छा होगा.
बिल्कुल. नो, थैंक यू वेरी मच. जैसे कि आपने कहा दया जी, सो I grew up in a service background. So मेरे father railways में थे, मेरी mother defense ministry में थी. So basically घर का माहौल मेरी और मेरी बहन की जो upbringing थी was a typical service family where academics were absolutely crucial. हम लोग railway colonies में बड़े हुए, so एक बहुत ही strong community थी जो हमसे बड़े भैया और दीदी वगैरह होते थे उस टाइम पे, वो they were our role models. And it was a fairly, I would say, protected and sheltered childhood that one had, given that you're part of this community, you're seeing others join large companies, do very well in life, and that is how we got molded in a way, especially by my parents who, like I said, were with the services. But हमारा एक और नजरिया ये था जब हम लोग अपने नाना या grandparents के यहाँ जाते थे, they were businessmen, they were entrepreneurs, and एक कहीं obviously वो learning भी आती गई as we grew up, कि the risk taking ability or risk managing ability, I would call it, of an entrepreneur and what it means to be lead an entrepreneur's life versus let's say a fairly, I would say, perhaps a stable service life. And इस माहौल में जब हम लोग बड़े हुए तो obviously natural step था, parents वगैरह की भी expectation थी कि academics में बहुत अच्छा करो, engineering करो, और फिर एक अच्छी job, MBA करो और फिर job करो. And followed a very fairly conventional path, I must say, till I did college, etc. But एक चीज थी जो obviously हमेशा मेरे को motivate करती थी कि I didn't want to always be in a comfort zone, and follow pretty much what I wanted to do that was more important than what I was currently doing. And hence, I started off, of course, I did very well in school, and after that, I joined St. Stephen's to do my economic honors. But जब economics कर रहे थे तो मेरे को अभी भी engineering का काफी कीड़ा था उस टाइम पे. तो after a year I decided कि नहीं, अब economics हो गया, अब मेरे को engineering करनी है तो करनी है. And fortunately at that time I got a great scholarship to study in the UK. And आज तक मेरे parents बोलते हैं कि किसी ने Stephens नहीं छोड़ाएगा तुमने छोड़ के तुम engineering करने निकल गए. But that was what I really wanted to do at that point in time, and I must say I would not trade that decision for anything. I really thoroughly enjoyed my time doing engineering, being in a very different environment. I'd never lived away from home, Dayaji, till then. So that those 4 years of my being abroad, staying away from home, I got to learn so much and became so much more independent, and perhaps also a lot more confident about myself. And then I started to work in the UK, but there was a lot of action that was happening in India at that time. Telecom वगैरह boom हो रहा था. ये कुछ 2004-2005 की बात है. And I decided कि अब यहाँ पे तो ठीक है, but वापस इंडिया चलते हैं और कुछ कुछ सीखते हैं जहाँ पे असल में काम हो रहा है. So I came back, and that was again a big decision. My parents were literally shocked. ये बाहर जाके फिर अब वापस क्यों आ गया? So, so obviously for them, reconciling to some of the decisions I was taking was very difficult. But in my mind, I was sensing, looking at newer opportunities and my desire and passion to do something different, and that's what I was chasing. So I came back to India, worked here in management consulting, largely looking at telecom. फिर obviously, MBA का MBA की एक नीड थी मेरे को, जो लगा जब काम कर रहे थे तो इट वुड बी हेल्पफुल टू हैव some form of business understanding and management understanding.
Definitely.
ISB गए और MBA करा. And then as luck would have it, 2009 था, बहुत ही बुरा साल था employment और jobs के लिए. But I was among the lucky few to have got an international placement, so I moved to Europe. And ये भी decision बड़ा interesting था, because उस time पे मेरे को एक और management consulting का role मिला था versus Germany shift होके एक नई language सीखने का मौका था, एक बिल्कुल ही अलग environment में operate करने का मौका था. And this is what I wanted to do, because I was I wanted to learn new things all the time. And I moved based to Germany. Spent the next 7 years learning German at first, working in the with the board of Lufthansa. You can imagine, मतलब उन्होंने वो मेरे को लेके आए थे कि हम लोग internationalize कर देंगे organization को, but in reality I got Germanized at that time. But it was a fantastic experience there, because I was operating in a very complex environment. एक तो माहौल बिल्कुल अलग था. I was the only Indian among, I would say, thousands of Germans in the headquarters. Language नहीं सीखने को मिली, तो काम उस language में हो रहा था जो मेरे को familiar नहीं थी. So all these things, I guess if I look back, they were adding to my personality and confidence and perhaps professional skill over a period of time. And जब फिर 2015 में मौका आया, unfortunately, it was also out of a personal pain point. I had become an early stage diabetic, and coincidentally, I was visiting India for a holiday when I bumped into a friend of mine, Yash. मेरा स्कूल का दोस्त है यश, and I was shocked to learn that he had also become a very heavy diabetic. फिर हम लोगों ने एक तो बात करनी शुरू करी, and I realized that this was perhaps something that we wanted to solve for ourselves. And उस टाइम पे 2015-16 अगर आपको याद होगा तो स्टार्टअप इकोसिस्टम बड़ी अच्छी तरह से इवॉल्व हो रहा था. स्नैपडील, फ्लिपकार्ट, ये कंपनियां बहुत बड़ी बन रही थी. फॉर्चुनेटली मेरा स्कूलमेट और स्कूल फ्रेंड कुणाल बहल और रोहित बंसल हैं, जो स्नैपडील के फाउंडर्स हैं. तो उनसे बहुत ही प्रभावित हुए हम लोग कि ये भी कर सकते हैं तो हम लोग भी कुछ शायद कर सकते हैं. So I decided to move back again, left everything, very stable life in Europe, and moved back to India. And Yash and I set up BeatO. So I think what I would take back is that in the formative years of both my education as well as the early years of my working in large organizations or otherwise, I wanted to pick up as much new skills as I could. And I think over a period of time that has actually helped me to make certain decisions and then be able to have a successful outcome on those. So that's really been the journey over the last I would say 30 odd years of my life.
बहुत अच्छे से आपने बताया गौतम. आई थिंक कुछ चीजें जो मैं इसमें बड़ी साफ निकल के आ रही हैं, जब मैं आपको सुन रहा हूँ तो बड़ी साफ निकल के आ रही हैं कि एक तो ये कि आपको जो आपने बात बोली कि मुझे इंजीनियरिंग करनी थी, इंजीनियरिंग का कीड़ा था, विच इज लाइक हम उसको बोलते हैं कि यू बीइंग पैशनेट अबाउट समथिंग, राइट? सो दैट वाज वेरी 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 क्लियर इन योर माइंड कि ये मेरा पैशन है, मुझे इसको परस्यू करना है। तो एक बड़ी बड़ी चीज है अपने आप में, एक बड़ी क्वालिटी है अपने आप में। दूसरी बड़ी क्वालिटी जो मेरे को आपकी बात से समझ में आई, वो ये समझ में आई कि generally majority of us, right, majority of us, I would say 99.999% people, we get stuck into being very comfortable in our comfort zones, right? जिसको कि आपने कभी आने नहीं दिया। मतलब आप उस एक नई इंडस्ट्री में गए, एक नई कंट्री में गए, एक नए मे बी सेक्टर में गए, और आपने उसमें वहां पे जो भी चीजें सीखने को थी, आपने उन चीजों को सीखा, ग्रैस्प किया बड़ी क्विकली। बट जब वो फेज आने वाली थी कि यार मैं इसमें कहीं खो नहीं जाऊं कंफर्ट जोन में, वहीं पे आपने अपने आप को शेक किया और आपने कहा कि नहीं, ये मैंने ये मंजिल मैंने पाली, मुझे अब अगला पड़ाव देखना है, राइट? तो वो एक जो चीज रही है, तो आई थिंक उसने भी आपको कहीं ना कहीं हेल्प किया, सपोर्ट किया है टू रीच वेयर यू आर टुडे। एंड थर्ड विच इज, हाँ,
sorry go on.
sure. And the third thing is that having gotten an exposure while spending your childhood with your grandparents, so वो जो एक एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप वाली बात थी, वो जो एक रिस्क टेकिंग एबिलिटी, या एक वो जो आपको वो एक क्लियर आइडिया होना कि एक 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 कंफर्ट जोन है, उसके अपने प्लस हैं। तो दो डिफरेंट डिस्टिंक्ट लाइफस्टाइल्स हैं अपनी, एक जॉब वाली है और एक बिजनेस की है, राइट? तो आपको दोनों का एक फेयर आइडिया था, और आपको ये भी पता था कि इसके लिए क्या पाने को क्या है और खोने को क्या है। तो आई थिंक ये दो तीन चीजें जो हैं, इसने कलेक्टिवली आपको वो गौतम बनाया है जो आप आज हैं, वर्सेस जब आपने जर्नी स्टार्ट करी थी, राइट?
नहीं, थैंक यू वेरी मच। इतना अच्छा डायग्नोसिस तो मेरे को किसी ने आज तक नहीं दिया, सो थैंक यू फॉर दैट। नाउ इट्स क्रिस्टल क्लियर इन माय माइंड व्हाई आई बिकेम एन एंटरप्रेन्योर।
एब्सोल्युटली, ये
Thank you.
रिफ्लेक्ट हो रहा है,
But
ये रिफ्लेक्ट हो
you're
रहा
absolutely right, because most of the time, Dayaji, and I'm sure you're so experienced, you spend so much of time in industry, you'll understand by even seeing peers around you. Many times we think of taking a step, but we don't actually take that step with because of a fear of change or a fear of failure, etc. I think that's an important thing to overcome. And I
right,
think changes in people's life actually mean that that there is progression
right,
in one way or the other, and eventually, of course, everybody strives for both material things and spiritual things. But at the end of the day, progress is not defined by either or.
correct,
Progress is on any change, any learning that you have. You made you've taken a further step in terms of
right,
building some competence or capability. So I think that is something which I feel is an important inherent need for any youngster,
right,
to be able to not fear change or fear failure, because there is nothing like that.
right.
You need to keep moving forward with certain decisions.
पर्टिकुलरली जब आप एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप के बारे में सोच रहे हैं, और उस टाइम में अगर आप डर गए इन सब चीजों से कि यार चेंज होगा, क्योंकि चेंज तो होने वाला है और वो
Yeah.
बिल्कुल हिला देने वाला है। मतलब ऐसा चेंज नहीं है कि यू आर वेरी वेरी लकी इन केस इफ यू हैवंट gone through, or if you didn't have to go through the change what it takes to kind of get on to your own journey, right, as a startup entrepreneur। तो अगर नहीं हुआ है तो आप बहुत लकी हैं, बट ऐसे बहुत कम लोग होंगे।
नहीं, बिल्कुल। और sometimes I still remember 5 years back, before I had taken a decision to move back to India from Europe. I think it's very easy to get stuck in analysis paralysis, Excel sheets बना के scenario 1 यहाँ पे रहो वहाँ जाओ, you can get very lost. But एक बार पता नहीं मेरे को, I'm sure सबके most people have this, but I think also if this switch moves in my mind कि ये करना है, उसके बाद फिर और कुछ सामने नजर नहीं आता, then I take the plunge and just go with it, right?
राइट,
Because
राइट।
the more you over analyze, the more you overthink on certain decisions, फिर वो इतनी स्टेल हो जाती है, फिर शायद वो तुम नेक्स्ट स्टेप ले ही नहीं पाते।
नहीं, intuition is very very important, intuition is very very important, and more you try and follow your intuitions, more you start becoming a master of it, right? And वो बाद में आप एक स्टेज पे रियलाइज करते हैं कि वो आपको शायद एक राइट डायरेक्शन में लेके जा रही हैं, राइट? तो हम उसको आप इंट्यूशन बोल लो या उसको आप ये बोल दो कि यू नो देयर इज ऑलमाइटी हु इज गाइडिंग यू on that particular path, whichever way you take it. I mean, but this is the fact of the life. This is the fact of the life. Right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, I always say man proposes, God disposes. So at the end of the day, you can make n number of plans. How it will
Right.
turn out might be completely different. But when you look back, one should never repent a certain decision that may have taken, etc. Because
Right.
I think that process is what you need to enjoy. The
Absolutely.
outcome can change. The journey to that outcome might be different, but that journey is what is important. एंड ये ना बहुत
Right.
थ्योरेटिकल लगता है क्योंकि हम लोग भी जब जब ये आप क्रिकेट मैचेस देखते हो, जब धोनी या विराट कोहली ये बताते हैं कि यार प्रोसेस इज इम्पोर्टेंट, आउटकम तो यू मस्ट गो एंड एंजॉय योरसेल्फ, बट एक्चुअली व्हेन यू स्टार्ट लुकिंग एट लाइफ इन जनरल, फॉरगेट अबाउट
Right.
क्रिकेट, बट इवन योर इन जनरल अबाउट योर लाइफ, आई थिंक दीज आर वेरी रेलेवेंट थिंग दे आर जी, कि एक्चुअली
Right.
प्रोसेस ही है जो तुम्हें शेप करता है, और इवेंचुअल आउटकम जैसे आपने बताया लाइक इट्स नॉट 100% guaranteed.
Right.
But more often than not, you'll reach your desired outcome. But you might reach it by route A or route B. It doesn't it
Right.
hardly.
Right. नहीं, बिल्कुल सही, बिल्कुल सही. तो आपने वो जो so picking the thread from what you were mentioning that आपने यूरोप से you made a trip down to India. It was a holiday trip for you, where you realized that you got diagnosed pre-diabetic, and then you happened to come across this friend of yours, school friend, and he was also heavily diabetic, right? तो जनरल मेंटेलिटी जो रहती है गौतम, वो ये रहती है कि यार है, मतलब डायग्नोस हुआ है तो यार लेट मी गो सी अ डॉक्टर, राइट? बट आपने वो तो किया ही किया, बट आपके साथ में बैक ऑफ द माइंड कुछ प्लान्स भी चलने लगे कि यार अगर ये मेरे साथ में हो रहा है, मेरे फ्रेंड के साथ में हो रहा है, तो ये कितने लोगों के साथ में हो रहा है, और अगर कितने लोगों के साथ में हो रहा है तो इसको एड्रेस कैसे किया जा रहा है, कितना इफेक्टिवली किया जा रहा है, राइट? और क्या उसमें स्कोप है that I can create a differentiator here by not just being a patient getting treated, or maybe in getting towards being a patient and getting treated for it, versus I must do something about it. वो जो एक सोच थी, वो थोड़ा सा उसका बैकग्राउंड की, मतलब एक स्टार्टअप आपने इकोसिस्टम बताया, वो समझ में आती है कि यार स्टार्टअप उस टाइम में बन रहे थे, चल रहे थे, और सबका एक ही था कि एक पैशन था कि यार लेट मी आल्सो हैव अ स्टार्टअप ऑफ माय ओन टाइप्स, राइट? बट उसके साथ साथ आपने क्या, मतलब मार्केट को कैसे स्टडी किया, सेक्टर को कैसे स्टडी किया, क्या आपको लगा कि दिस इज द राइट अपॉर्चुनिटी टाइम दैट आई मस्ट डू समथिंग अबाउट इट एट अ वेरी लार्ज स्केल?
No, absolutely. And of course, it was not an outcome of one day. I think it was, a few phases before we actually decided upon what we had to do. And of course, since we've got into this, over the last 4 years, things have also changed and evolved the way we have gone about building BeatO. But, maybe just jogging my memory back there, when I came back, I had no thought कि अब इस trip पे आ रहे हैं और अब more or less seats so हो जाएंगे कि मतलब I will be leaving Lufthansa and moving back to India. That was never the intent. So it was just a chance meeting. In fact, I met Yash, and we were in fact here in Delhi, only close to my home, and we were catching up after a fairly long time, and we just began talking, and I realized that when we were talking, he said, I've been recently diagnosed with diabetes," and I said, "Oh, I was also diagnosed with pre-diabetes, and some of my other health vitals were also out of range." And we began talking, and first, of course, we felt that यार हम लोग खुद क्यों नहीं मैनेज कर पा रहे, या यश क्यों नहीं मैनेज कर पा रहा. उसने अपना एक्सपीरियंस मेरे को बताया इंडिया में, what all he had to face, starting with insulin on one side. उसका HbA1c 9.5 था when he was diagnosed. So and fairly, I would say, quite late diagnosis. So he got started on insulin. Somebody moved him to metformin. But all of when he was talking about this, I think one thing which was going back, into our minds was that, there are, when he's explaining his journey, it is so much fractured. There are so many problems that he had to face to just get basic understanding about how to manage diabetes for himself. And we said that, when we began talking and working this through deeply, we realized that यार कुछ तो है कि ठीक नहीं चल रहा है. बस इतना उस वक्त उस मीटिंग में सिर्फ इतना ही हम लोग डिसाइड करके बाहर निकला है. But then obviously, ये seed so हो चुका था. I was also planning. I had seen what was happening in terms of opportunities, etc. But this started basically playing out in my mind, also his mind. कि यार ये अगर हमारे साथ हो रहा है तो ये कितनी बड़ी प्रॉब्लम होएगी और इसको कैसे सॉल्व किया जा सकता है. सो अगले 2-3 महीने हम दोनों टच में रहे. And we scanned India, we looked at what are the solution, how is diabetes management carried out, US वगैरह में क्या होता है. And then 3 months later I came back to India again, but this time with a purpose. This time I came back to spend 1 week only with Yash because we wanted to dig further deeper into this problem, and also because हम दोनों अच्छे दोस्त थे but हम लोगों ने कभी काम नहीं करा था एक साथ. तो जैसे शादी होती है ना, वी जस्ट वांटेड टू मेक श्योर कि हम दोनों एक दूसरे को अच्छी तरह समझ लें, क्योंकि हम दोनों के लिए बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट डिसीजन है. एंड फ्रैंकली आई बिलीव दैट फाइंडिंग द राइट को-फाउंडर or a partner in an entrepreneurial journey is one of the most important things that you can do, right? So हम दोनों ने एक
उतना ही इम्पोर्टेंट जितना लाइफ पार्टनर आपने बोला.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल. So maybe अब हम दोनों
उतना ही इम्पोर्टेंट जितना लाइफ पार्टनर आपने जैसे बोला.
नहीं, जैसे frankly I might be talking to him more in a day than each of us talk to our respective wives, right? So the point was that because of this process, Dayaji, we managed to work together very closely. That 1 week was, I would say, very instrumental in shaping our minds of how we viewed this as an opportunity. And then finally when I decided to move back, we were well prepared in terms of what were really the gaps. The fact that India unfortunately has lack of access of doctors, infrastructure is a problem, affordability is an issue, outpatient care जो भी होती है, जो आपको दवाइयों का खर्चा होता है, मॉनिटरिंग का खर्चा, वो सब आपको अपनी पॉकेट से भरना पड़ता है, इंश्योरेंस वगैरह नहीं कवर करती. और यही एक रीजन है मेन जो हम लोगों को समझ आया कि is inhibiting or creating a roadblock for people to get better control of their diabetes. And उसी टाइम पे हम लोग जब तो ये तो प्रॉब्लम स्टेटमेंट थी जो हम लोग we could filter down by working together, talking to a lot of doctors, talking to a lot of our network of people who were either caregivers or who were patients, etc. in India.
Right.
And then we started looking at what were the other solutions and why is it that the system is not solving for this. And we realized that obviously healthcare system is not really incentivized today in India to keep a person outside the hospital. On the contrary, most of the money is made when a person gets hospitalized in India, right? So, but ऐसा US और ऐसा यूरोप वगैरह में नहीं था. And that's when we realized कि अगर इंडिया में प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व करनी है तो फिजिकल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर नहीं कर सकता, डिजिटल टेक फर्स्ट सॉल्यूशंस ही कर सकते हैं. And we had good examples when we researched in the US and somewhere else, like large companies, digital companies, to realize that diabetes perhaps is the perfect candidate that actually can get managed digitally. And that is when this all started to make sense कि मतलब इंडिया इतनी बड़ी कंट्री है, 80 मिलियन डायबिटिक हैं, उनमें से 80% लोग अनकंट्रोल्ड हैं, डॉक्टर पेशेंट रेशियो इतना पुअर है, डॉक्टर्स विल नेवर बी एबल टू कैच अप विद द पेस ऑफ ग्रोथ ऑफ डायबिटीज. सो यहाँ पे सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट क्या लेवरेज यूज करके हम लोग लाखों मिलियंस ऑफ लोगों को पहुंच सकते हैं, वाज ओनली टेक्नोलॉजी. And that's when this concept came about. Of course it has changed over the last 4-5 years. What we started with was I would say laying the foundation of what we have been able to build today. But again, like I said, it's been a process. It's keeping our eyes, ears and nose open all the time to keep synthesizing what our environment is telling us, and then digesting that and processing it based on from an entrepreneurial perspective, how can we translate the problem into a solution. So I think the biggest learning for me has been, as an entrepreneur, you need to be a big problem solver. You see a problem, your instant your reaction for that when you look at a problem should be that how do I go about and solve it, and if I solve this, can I solve it for a large number of people, and eventually of course can this become into a large business opportunity as well. And that's what we have tried to do, and I must say that it's worked out so far very well.
मैं इनफैक्ट आई वाज रीडिंग थ्रू इट यस्टरडे इटसेल्फ, और मुझे पढ़ के अच्छा लगा, मतलब द काइंड ऑफ इम्पैक्ट इट इज क्रिएटिंग नाउ, राइट. तो उसको और इसका जो स्कोप है वो जो ये अब बढ़ता जा रहा है, टियर 3 टियर 4 टाउन्स के अंदर जो आप बात कर रहे हो, आप जो एप्स के एनेबलमेंट की जो बात कर रहे हैं आप, तो वो जो पेनिट्रेशन है वो आई एम श्योर एक्चुअली ये बहुत बड़ा एक पेन पॉइंट जो है जिसको एड्रेस करने वाला है। और सबसे बड़ी चीज तो ये है कि एटलीस्ट जितने लोगों के पास आप जाएंगे उतने लोगों के पास में कम से कम एक अवेयरनेस तो आएगी कि यार ये डायबिटीज नाम की कोई चीज है
Yeah,
जिसके बारे में मुझे अवेयर होना है और मैं इसको रोक भी सकता हूँ, प्रोवाइडेड इफ आई
yeah,
change my lifestyle or by making.
absolutely. And Dayaji, I mean, we call it the 3 A's of diabetes, awareness, accessibility, and affordability. ये हैं
Hmm.
problem statements of diabetes, right?
Right.
Awareness ही कम है तो 80 million तो diagnosed diabetic हैं, ये conservative number होगा, इसके 2 गुना ही होंगे.
Right.
Access, like I said, doctor, far and few to be able to
Right.
help. And
Right.
जो हैं भी वो like for you and me living in metro cities, relatively upper middle class societies, etc. It's easy, but look at
Right.
people who perhaps the economic propensity, etc. is less. It's very hard to go to a good quality doctor, get the right advice, and
बिल्कुल.
affordability, of course, comes in. And when you start looking at it, actually, it's a wrong notion that diabetes or these sort of conditions are actually a rich man's disease. It's not the case.
Hmm.
When you look at the incidence of diabetes, the biggest problem we have is middle of India and the base of the pyramid, right? The
Hmm.
incidence of diabetes in smaller cities and towns is on the rise exponentially. But
Hmm.
unfortunately, infrastructure नहीं है. Infrastructure अभी भी chronic disease management वगैरह का थोड़ा बहुत metro cities में है, tier 1 cities में. तो असली
Right.
problem जो हमें आ रही है, वो obviously as a nation, the cost burden of these chronic conditions like diabetes is on the rise, and bulk of the
Right.
problem is situated with middle of India, living in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. And that's why digital first technology solutions are the only way to solve this. And I
Right.
always look at from the perspective कि ये जो लोग हैं जिनको आज एक्सेस नहीं है गुड क्वालिटी केयर का, they will
Hmm.
experience healthcare digitally first.
Right.
They've not been able to go
Right.
to meet a quality doctor,
Right.
but digitally they will be able to have proper care with
Right.
integrated services for the first
Right.
time.
बिल्कुल.
uh,
बिल्कुल.
आपने you saw it even during COVID, etc. I mean, a lot of education, etc. actually happened on smartphones for kids,
Right.
right? Many
बिल्कुल.
people even
बिल्कुल.
can't in India maybe don't have a laptop or a desktop, but they consume content on their smartphone. So
Right.
healthcare is moving in that direction as well. People who were excluded from mainstream healthcare for the first time will start to witness and get good quality care, virtually.
बिल्कुल. बिल्कुल. मैं तो जब भी डिजिटल की बात सुनता हूँ तो मेरे दिमाग में सिर्फ दो ही चीजें आती हैं. एक तो आपका स्मार्टफोन जो आपने अभी बात की, राइट? तो आज ये सोच पाना बड़ा मुश्किल लगता है कि यार किसके पास स्मार्टफोन नहीं होगा. मतलब आप बॉटम ऑफ द पिरामिड में भी आप कहीं और भी उसको देखने की कोशिश करो तो आपको मिलेगा कि नहीं यार ये तो है, एटलीस्ट ये तो स्मार्टफोन तो है, राइट? फिर सेकंड आपका जो है एप्स, राइट? एप्स के अंदर ऑब्वियसली देयर कुड बी an element of complexity there, but if you really talk about WhatsApp, right, a combination
Yeah.
of smartphone and WhatsApp, right? आप आप घर में अपने बच्चे से लेके और आप ग्रैंड पेरेंट्स तक को
Yeah.
उसको दे दो व्हाट्सएप और स्मार्टफोन, राइट? एंड इट डजंट टेक मोर देन मे बी 1 or 2 days that they become very much familiar with how to operate it and how to effectively leverage this. तो
Yeah.
इतना आसान बन गई है टेक्नोलॉजी.
Yeah.
और
And ये आसान होना बहुत जरूरी है ना दया जी, because that's the only way behaviors will change.
राइट.
वो एक बहुत ही renowned प्रोफेसर हैं स्टैनफोर्ड के, उनका नाम है बीजे फॉग. उन्होंने एक ये फ्रेमवर्क बनाया of behavior change, where he says it's a map principle, so motivation, ability and prompt. उसमें मोटिवेशन तो सबकी होती है, पढ़ने की मोटिवेशन स्टूडेंट की
सब.
है, अपनी डायबिटीज को ठीक करने की एक डायबिटिक की इनहेरेंट मोटिवेशन है, वो बहुत ज्यादा हो सकती है, कम हो सकती है, बट ability to be able to solve for that is
राइट.
among the most important things. तो अगर आप आज सोचो अगर कोई अजमेर में है और उसको डॉक्टर जयपुर में मिलने जाना है, तो
राइट.
मे बी उसको पोस्टपोन करते रहेंगे, इनर्शिया इतना ज्यादा होगा कि यार कब कोई प्रॉब्लम होगी तभी जाएंगे, अभी नहीं जाएंगे.
बिल्कुल.
Whereas if you give them access on WhatsApp,
राइट.
it is so easy to be able to
राइट.
reach out to your to your family doctor or to your in any space, right? The
राइट.
access is the most important to be able to drive, or the ability making it easier is
राइट.
the most important to be able to then see people's motivation increase and for them to be able to avail of certain
राइट.
use of technology as well.
राइट. एब्सोल्युटली. एब्सोल्युटली. तो ये आप जो टेक फर्स्ट डिजिटल की बात कर रहे हैं गौतम, आपकी पूरी जर्नी में आपको क्या लगता है कि फ्रॉम टेक्नोलॉजी आपने अपॉर्चुनिटीज तो बड़ी क्लियरली बता दी हैं और बहुत अच्छे से समझ में भी आता है कि इस लेवल का पेनिट्रेशन डीप रूटेड रीच जो है आपकी was not possible without technology being available there, right? And उसके एडवांसमेंट भी जो एआई मशीन लर्निंग और ये सब जो है उसके जो एप्लीकेशंस हैं उसके एडवांटेजेस बेनिफिट्स हम सबको पता है, राइट? तो क्या क्या मतलब हम देख रहे हैं एआर वीआर स्पेस में,
Right.
राइट? बट कुछ पर्टिकुलर चैलेंजेस विद रिगार्ड्स टू टेक्नोलॉजी या बीइंग ए टेक स्टार्टअप, राइट? कुछ चैलेंजेस अगर आपने फेस किए हो और वो अगर आप शेयर करना चाहेंगे जिससे कि बाकी लोग उन चीजों को ध्यान में रख सकें और केयरफुली प्लान कर सकें, दैट वुड बी वंडरफुल। तो
Yeah, I think Dayaji, I think if you're building a tech digital first solution, I think सबसे पहले for I would say for a startup or for an entrepreneur, it's very important to have solid talent who can actually help in delivering on that promise. So we were fortunate, our third co-founder Kunal, who's also a chief technology officer, brings in rich experience and expertise in technology, various forms of technologies. With him and the team that he has, we've been able to make not only leverage technology to be able to reach a wide spectrum of people, but also make technology very usable. तो आई थिंक वो ध्यान में बहुत जरूरी रखना पड़ता है, एंड इट्स नॉट लाइक कि we didn't fail. Our first app, when we had come out, it fell flat on its face because वो यश और I had made it for ourselves, it seemed, right? So मतलब young 30-year-olds ने अपने लिए एक ऐप बना दी, बट हम लोग ने जब देखा कि देखो हमारे जो मेन यूजर हैं वो tier 2 tier 3 सिटीज में 40-45 years and over हैं, उनका यूजर बिहेवियर बहुत डिफरेंट है देन मेरा और यश का. तो वो एक understanding the need of the consumer and then translating that need through use of technology and making it more easy, like you said about ability and access, is something that is extremely crucial. So I think for us as an organization, we lay a lot of attention and focus on technology for sure, but making the product very usable, and hence our product team, which Ajendra drives, is a team that always is looking at how do we make whatever technology we have, how do we keep making that more and more usable, so that the friction points that people have over a period of time can be reduced. Of course, what we also see is at times it takes a little longer for certain cohorts of people or certain segments of people to adopt some form of technology, but ensuring that we have the right processes in place to enable that individual or that segment of population to adopt and cross that barrier is also something which is extremely important. And we've learned by doing also a little bit. It's not like spark of knowing everything was there from day one. But when we look back, we analyze a lot of data. I think for any startup, it's really important कि data driven. Of course, at the end of the day, थोड़ा intuition वगैरह जरूरी है, but largely decision making, especially on product, should be largely data driven. And your customers will tell you, what they're finding good or what they're not finding good. So, making sure that that close connect with the customer is always there, and you're using data to validate certain hypotheses you have, and then building, making use of technology and translating it into a product which can satisfy or fulfill a need for a customer is extremely important.
Right. I mean, I think जो आप बोल रहे हैं वो सिर्फ आप जो बोल रहे हैं ब्रॉडली ये बोल रहे हैं कि टेक्नोलॉजी एनेबलर होना चाहिए, इट शुड सपोर्ट द कोर ऑब्जेक्टिव, बट ये ऐसा नहीं हो कि हम टेक्नोलॉजी सेक के लिए मतलब फॉर हेक ऑफ इट, लाइक
technology should be in the background, like customer has no desire to deal with robots and AI, etc. All that is for us geeks to work out in the background, but the customer should have a very simple ability to get what he wants. If he wants good quality diabetes care, that's what he's looking for. His pain point can only be addressed by that, not by an app.
Absolutely.
which has AI, etc. वो AI वगैरह वो सारा background में important है,
Right.
but
Right.
it needs to fulfill a need for the customer.
तो कस्टमर को उस पे लेके आना, आपकी ऐप के ऊपर लेके आना और इंश्योर करना कि वो जिस पर्पज से आया वो पर्पज फुलफिल हो जाता है,
Yeah.
right? And he go backs without even realizing that the customer would have left so many data points for you to analyze and
Yeah.
come up with a better better version on a
Absolutely.
day-to-day basis, which actually helps you.
Absolutely.
Fantastic, fantastic. बड़ा अच्छा डिस्कशन गौतम अभी तक। आई थिंक मेरे हिसाब से मैं एक और चीज आपसे जो पूछना चाहूंगा इन द इंटरेस्ट ऑफ टाइम, विच इज जो एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप का आज आप एक जुनून देख रहे हो, है ना? बहुत सारे लोग समझते हैं कि एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप इज द वे, इसमें कोई डाउट नहीं है, दैट इज द वे, बट उनको आप कोई एडवाइस जो देना चाहेंगे अपने एक्सपीरियंस से कि what it is in actual sense, right, rather than just being hype or anything, a word of caution or maybe a word of motivation. I mean, I leave it up to you, मैं बिल्कुल but आप अपना एक्सपीरियंस, जेन्युइन ऑथेंटिक एक्सपीरियंस आप शेयर करेंगे तो सबके साथ
नहीं,
तो हेल्प करेगा ये।
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I must, I mean, overall, I have observed closely, how India has changed in the last 4-5 years, Dayaji. I must congratulate all stakeholders कि इतना अच्छा माहौल बना दिया for people, to be able to think about entrepreneurship favorably, right?
Right.
अभी अगर आप देखो तो, when youngsters are joining startups, etc., अगर आप campus placement में जाओ, it's one of the top priorities for people to join. I still remember 5-6 years back, जब हम लोगों ने MBA, I had left ISB, there were hardly any startups which had come at that time, मतलब hardly कोई थी भी उस टाइम पे, और उसको हमेशा एक शक की नजर से देखा जाता था, right? But that has completely changed now, right? Because ecosystem भी evolve हुआ है, venture capitalists ने बहुत अच्छा, obviously they brought in a lot of positives, the government's done a lot, the entrepreneurs themselves, the successful people, perhaps. I think every entrepreneur is successful, but from the scale and size of it, some have achieved even larger scale. But I think every entrepreneur in the last 4-5 years has really been an inspiration to a whole generation of people who are coming in. And I think it's entrepreneurship is not only, it's not only a hype in my view. It is also the core of how India will develop, because this is the only way, more employment will get generated. This is the only way innovation and disruption will happen as we step into the future going forward. So entrepreneurship is something which now is becoming, it's like हम लोग पहले बोलते रहते हैं entrepreneurial spirit वगैरह, आज वो actually देखने को मिलता है और feel करने को मिलता है. Even when I'm talking about it, I've got goosebumps, because everywhere you go there is so much of conversation around people wanting to do things differently. The younger generation is growing up with this. So when we grew up, तभी भी service था, but अब अगर आप लोग देखो जो workforce वगैरह में आ रहे हैं, they're getting a taste of fast paced startup environment, maybe looking out to work on their own after some time. I think all of that is great, but of course you said what are, I would say, first of all, motivation to outlay. I think in my personal experience, I can only say that it's been the most enriching and fulfilling experience of the last 4-5 years. I can very easily confess, and this is not theory, what I learned in 10 years of a job, I think I would have learned 10 times or more of that in the last 5 years of entrepreneurship. So I think that's been, at least from a positive side, I would say the biggest takeaway, that I would never trade the last 5 years for anything. I think it's been absolutely amazing. I think the one part of it which I would say people should definitely not watch out for, but be cognizant of as they enter into entrepreneurship, is solve for real problems. Like you said, because of this hype, because of easy access to capital, etc. It's very easy to get swayed by trends, etc. Or US में हो रहा है, इसको copy paste करके यहाँ करते हैं, etc. etc. But really focus on being able to add value and finding real problems to solve which resonate with you. Because do remember that if you're passionate about solving for a problem, it's not not every time it's going to be कि आज आपने कुछ सोचा वो कल चल जाएगा,
Right.
right? Most of the times it will take some period of time for you to figure things out,
Right.
make your idea convert into a product,
Right.
and that product then satisfying the need of a customer.
Right.
And so you would need to be persistent with it, and the only way to be able to do that is A, if it's a real problem you're going to solve, and B, if you're passionate about solving that problem. So carry those ideally into your decision making when individuals think about
Right.
entrepreneurship. And the last thing is, by no means it's an easy ride. So if you're signing up कि मैं कल $1 billion company बन जाएगी और मैं कुछ millions, hundreds of million dollars की exit कर लूंगा, that shouldn't be the starting point. Of course, as for any entrepreneur, a material outcome is important and is some form of motivation, but it's important to have a larger cause in mind as you're building out a sustainable organization.
Absolutely. I mean, perfect advice. मैं थोड़ी सी लिबर्टी लेता हूँ गौतम. मैं ये कहता हूँ कि आपने ये बोला कि one must be passionate about the entrepreneur's journey. So one must be passionate about the problem area that they're trying to address. So अगर आप passionate हैं and you're building for a problem, a solution for a particular problem, right? In my mind, money becomes the byproduct.
Yeah.
अपने आप आ जाएगी. ये दोनों चीजें कर लो. मनी के बारे में सोचो भी मत, बिकॉज वो अपने आप आएगी आपके पास में. बट अगर ये दोनों चीजें नहीं है, जिसमें कि आप रियल प्रॉब्लम के लिए सॉल्व नहीं कर रहे हो एंड आप पैशनेट नहीं है, हर दिन आप अपने आप को क्वेश्चन मार्क लगा रहे हैं कि यार करना है नहीं करना है या कुछ और करना है, तो अगर कंसिस्टेंसी भी नहीं है, तो अगर आप रियल प्रॉब्लम भी सॉल्व कर रहे हैं, तो आप मे बी यू विल एग्जिट आउट विदाउट यील्डिंग एनी आउटपुट और रिटर्न्स ऑफ दिस पर्टिकुलर जर्नी. तो उतना ही ऐड करना चाहूंगा गौतम कि जो आपने बोला, that is a clear path which is leading to money being byproduct of it.
No, you aptly put it, sir. Absolutely.
But good, wonderful talking to you, Gautam. Wonderful talking to you. और एक बार फिर से बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद आपको. आपने हमारा इनवाइट एक्सेप्ट किया और आप आए, आपने टाइम निकाला. And I look forward to meeting you in person sometime.
Absolutely.
Things are opening up.
We are in the same city. I would love to do that.
Definitely. So thank you so much once again.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.
And all the very best to BeatO. And to you.
All the best.
For the continued success. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Take care. Bye.